Welcome to the Director's Cut podcast, a part of StoryTown Radio Show. In this podcast, we will feature stories that didn't make the final cut for the live radio show, but they are excellent stories and need to be shared. This edition is a little different. We kicked off the 2025 season with a special show at the newly reopened Jackson Theater. Prior to the theater's grand opening, StoryTown gathered stories about the theater from the people who grew up going to it. This story comes from Jimmy Rhein. To this day, Jimmy still lives in his family home and can walk to the theater. We weren't able to include his memories in the January show because we had so many stories, but we wanted to share it here and now.
My name is James E. Rhein, but I go by Jimmy Rhein in Jonesboro.
And I know the answer to this, but you grew up around here. You're a local boy.
Yes, I did. I was actually born in Charlotte, and my family moved back to Jonesboro. They had a home here that they rented for a while when they moved to Charlotte, where they were 5 years. And over there's where I was born. And so in 1944, my dad said, "We're going home." And so we left Charlotte, and I came to what they called home, but was going to be my new home.
Yeah. Oh. So do you remember the first time you went to the Jackson Theater, like your first experience there?
Yes. I probably was about 4 or 5 years old, and I guess I went with my mom and dad that time, and then within about a year, we had my dad had a lumber business, and he had people that drove the trucks, and one of the drivers was named George Greenlee.
Yeah. And
George was recently married to his wife, Mary Sue. And so when my dad came back to reopen the business and George came on board to be one of the drivers, he asked about someone to come and help out at home and explain the situation. And so we called her Susie, Mary Sue joined us, and she joined their family. And what I'm getting to is that lots of times in the afternoon, she'd take me for a walk.
Yeah.
And we would walk around town. And sometimes and the first time we went to the theater one afternoon for a matinee. And so we went into the theater, and so after we got our tickets, she said, "Now, Jimmy, you go into the main floor, and I'm going upstairs." And I said, "I don't understand why I'm going on into the main. Well, I'm going here and you're going there."
Yeah.
And so I didn't like that because I would be sitting down there by myself. So I said, "No, I'm going up there with you." And so, in fact, I did. And by then I had known everybody, both, not everybody, but a lot of people, both black and white in Jonesboro. And so I was perfectly home up there with the folks I knew, and we had a great time. And so that was one of my early experiences at Jackson. And then the other things that I remember, of course, they were typical for theaters at that time. We had a main feature, and then at the end I think it was mostly then, there'd be a news feature, and they would have a feature on world news, and then it would finish with the comedies. And I went mostly after I was older. I would go to the theater on Saturday. That was a big thing to do on Saturdays. Ted Hacker moved in next door, and he became my buddy. And then and J.D. Clark lived down the street, and J.D. and Ted and I would go to the movies. And then you may also know prominent in Jonesboro was J.D.'s brother Bobby, who served on the board of Mayor for Jonesboro for a number of years. But he was a little younger, so he typically did not go with us. But the three of us would go, and that was a special thing to do, to go to the movie, and we could spend the Saturday afternoon at the movie. And then when we came home, we stopped at Buddy Gresham's hotel, and there we could go in, and Buddy had pinball machines along the wall, the alleyway but down to JRT, and then across there was a counter that ran toward Main Street and made a left turn, and that counter headed west along the back of the building. But over in that corner there was a candy case, and we always stopped there and would get a big long stick of licorice for a penny. So the afternoon at the Jackson consisted of 9 cents to get into the movie, 10 cents for popcorn was 19, and a nickel would buy us a nice payday candy bar or something, and then we had a penny left over, which we would drop off at Buddy's for that long stick of licorice. And so that's kind of how our Saturdays went.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
How many hours would you be in the theater?
The theater would use the movies. There'd be on Saturdays. There was mostly always a double feature, and they were mostly westerns. And so it would constitute about 3 hours by the time we saw the shows. And the cartoon and all. They had 3 to 4 hours, so we could pretty well kill an afternoon there.
Did they show like movies like all day? They did evening stuff too?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, this was matinee for us during the afternoon, and then there were movies at night.
Okay.
And the first one I went to, movie I probably went to was a night movie with my parents, because I was a little guy. I was just 3 or 4 years old, and so that was night movies. And then the other thing that I remember about the Jackson, later on, they were trying to promote Friday and Saturday nights, and so they would have a live performance in association with the movie. And they'd have a drawing, and they had one of those big drums, and you'd put your tickets, and they'd wind the drum, and they'd have a drawing. And so they'd give like $100 or 50 or something like that. But at the time, it was a big deal, and everybody, so that would draw a crowd on Friday. They do that on Friday, and I think on Saturday too.
So you had to like buy a ticket, get in to be in the drawing.
That's right. That's right.
That's good marketing.
That's right. It was. But before that, it had been years before that building was built. I think it was Shipley's hardware store, and then it was later converted maybe during World War II or around in that time frame. They made a movie. No, that's not right. It was that, and then it became a movie house in the 1920s for silent movies, and it was the Blue Mouse. That's right, it was the Blue Mouse. And my Aunt Maud, my family lived across the street next door to the Presbyterian Church, between it and the Chester Inn. That's where my mother grew up. And at any rate, my Aunt Maud was living at home at the time they made that move, and she played the piano for the silent movies at the Blue Mouse.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What's your most memorable moment at the Jackson Theater? Do you have like one that just really stands out?
That's what I thought about that, and I can't really. I guess when they started doing the Friday night and Saturday night drawing, and they'd have some live entertainment. And at the time, it was local stuff, but, like the Carter family would come and play there, and different local, mountain music groups, bluegrass music groups would come, and that's, I guess, what I probably remember the most about the theater.
Thank you for tuning in to the Director's Cut podcast, a part of StoryTown Radio Show. Check in next month for more stories. StoryTown is supported by the Tennessee Arts Commission, Trivia with Buds, Terry and Sandy Countermine, Gary and Sandy Degner, McLeod Organics, the Wild Women of Jonesboro, and Wolf Development. You can go and enjoy a movie or a concert at the Jackson Theater in Jonesboro again today. So don't be a stranger. Come and make some memories of your own.